All right, ladies and gentlemen, I don't get very excited to interview people anymore, but I'm smiling with anticipation of how great this is going to be. This man is a true legend. He's one of the, and I hope I don't insult him by saying this, one of the all-time great NHL enforcers. He's someone I grew up watching. He's got the best hockey podcast going right now, by far. Please welcome the one, the only NHL legend, Mr. Chris Nilan.
Earl, thanks for having me, pal. I really appreciate it. And um, legend maybe in my mother's mind, in my father's mind, maybe, but legend?
I think you are. I mean,
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for the kind words.
because you grew up maybe in the last era, to me anyway, and I'm just an idiot fan of true toughness in the NHL, where every team had three to four heavyweights and probably another three to four guys who could fight, and then probably another
Yeah.
two agitators like Ken Linsman and so on. So, as a player who wasn't gigantic, I mean, you were a big guy, 6 feet, 205, but how did you navigate all those years in the league fighting mostly bigger players than you?
Well, you know, first of all, when I came into the league, when I came to my first training camp, I was nervous as all hell. I didn't really think I was going to come in and be a fighter, put it that way. Growing up in Boston, every kid growing up in Boston in my era, the late 60s, early 70s, wanted to be Bobby Orr. And those those are lofty aspirations for young kids, but Bobby Orr just took that city by storm. So, my idea of hockey was the way he played it. But I also saw how the Bruins played for years. They played tough. They had a lot of guys that could handle themselves. And they stuck together as a team. And that resonated with me in the way I grew up with my family and my friends, that sticking together as friends, sticking up for each other, that kind of stuff. So that was already ingrained in me. And then because I loved the game so much, when it came time to play in it, and I couldn't play that way in high school, I couldn't play that way in college. I did play physical, but I never really fought. All the fighting I did was on the street. So when I got to the NHL, coming to Montreal, my first camp, you know, I was intimidated. I was nervous as all hell. I felt out of place. Coming into an organization who just won four Stanley Cups in a row, going for their fifth. I'm like, nobody thought I had a chance in hell, including me, but I was going to give it my best. And when I got there, I went through camp. I got sent to the American Hockey League. I had a 5-game tryout for $200 a game. And I didn't play the first 4 games. We're in Halifax. And the first game I was going to play in was in Maine. Maine was Philadelphia's farm team. And they had a lot of tough guys. And the year before, they beat the Voyageurs, the team I was playing for. They beat them in the playoffs, 4 straight. They kicked the shit out of them. They spooked them. They slashed them. They beat them up. And they were scared to touch the puck. So my first year, they were trying to, get a bigger, tougher team down in Halifax. So I didn't know I was destined for that. The coach wasn't a big Bert Templeton. He didn't like college kids or U.S. kids. So there's one strike against me. And anyway, I played that first game in Maine, and my family's there, everybody's there. And my first shift, I go out and I hit Glenn Cochran. And Glenn was 6'4", I don't know, 230, big kid, arms down to his ankles. And I hit him hard. He turned around and slashed me. I slashed him back, and then he dropped his gloves. So I said, here we go. And I fought him, and I cut him open really bad under his eye. And he was bleeding, and he went nuts, and we both got kicked out of the game. The next day, I'm in my room. Of course, my father was pissed because came up there all that way, and um, so I didn't play. I got kicked out after one fight, and um, the coach called me, said, "Hey, I got to talk to you. Come down to my room." So I'm thinking, wow, this is how naive I was. I got kicked out of the game. I think they're gonna fucking send me down to the next level, like the East Coast League. I'm going down, and that team was in Flint, so I'm nervous as hell going down the room. He goes, "Come on in, sit down." I go, "What's up?" He goes, "Great job last night." He said, "I'm not the only one who thought it was a great job. Montreal did too." And he said, "Do you have an agent?" And I said, "No, I don't have an agent. Fuck, I'm a 17th round pick. Nobody wanted to represent me." And he said, "Well, you better find one because the Canadians want to sign you to a NHL contract." I'm like, I shit myself. I walked out of there. Yeah. Anyway, after that fight, word travels fast. So it got around the league that I beat Cochran. He was one of the toughest guys in the league at the
Okay.
time. And every team I played against, every tough guy was coming after me. So I'm like, what the hell? I'm fighting every night. Like, it's crazy. I was fighting every night. In 49 games, I had 304 minutes in penalty. It's insane. So that's how the fighting started. But I didn't forget the hockey part. I played with a center iceman named Rick Maha. He was out of Boston University. Played at Habs. Eventually traded him. He went to St. Louis. He had an incredible career. Played unbelievable. Great offensive player, but he couldn't crack the lineup here because they were so strong. Anyway, I ended up with 15 goals and 10 assists in those 49 games with those PIMs. And Montreal ended up calling me up, and then the rest is history. And then it was everybody was going to try me at the NHL level.
I mean, did you have a fighting mentor, like an older veteran, to be like, "Hey, man, we're playing Philly. You're going to have to fight." At that time in the early '80s, Don Kelly, Bob Kelly, not Don Kelly,
Bob Kelly,
Schultz, and
Ben Wilson, all of them. Yeah.
I mean,
I
did you
did.
have a Yoda figure to say, "Hey,
Oh,
easy kid"?
Danielson.
Yeah.
Danielson.
So,
No one was there to say Knuckles, son. Larry Robinson was really good to me. Larry's a tough guy, but didn't have to play that way. But certainly in his early years, he did, and he took care of business. But at the time, the guy in Montreal was Pierre Bouchard and also Gilles Lupien. And I didn't really talk to them about that part of the game. The Excuse me, I'm sorry about that.
don't worry about it.
Pierre Bouchard ended up getting traded because he had that fight with Stan Jonathan
Right.
in the playoffs, and he got cut really bad, broke his nose, ended up going to Washington. And then it kind of opened up for me. And then I got called up. Loopy was still there, but he was done. He was fed up with the fighting. And quite honestly, I just did what I did in the American League, and they were happy with that. I didn't. I had to learn on my feet, and I learned a big lesson the first time I played against Boston.
Now, when that fight happened in the playoffs, um, where he got so bloodied and beat up, how does that affect the team? Like when a player loses a fight, like I've heard a lot of players say it's like a needle hitting a balloon, like because he was a tough player, and
Yeah,
to lose a fight, I don't want to say embarrassingly, but like that decisively, what does that do
yeah.
to the team in the locker room?
Well, he was actually doing good in the fight, and Stan hung in there with him. Like it was hitting him with some good shots. Then he come through and hit him with that one and just buried him, hit him right in the button. Um, it can be deflating, right? It's all them other guys. The thing is, they respect you for doing what you did. They feel bad for you for sure, and they also probably their assholes get a little bit tighter because your tough guy just got his hat handed to him,
Right.
and it could send a little, let's say, a little nervousness through the team. But good teams are able to compensate for that loss and say we're going to go out here and we're going to win this game for him. Look what he's done for us. Look
Right.
what happened to him.
And like, how does that affect a player individually? Like, I remember when Ed Hospodar, a good friend of yours, he's a pretty tough boy up until the night Clark Gillies dismantled his face, and he was never quite the
Oh,
same.
did he?
Yeah, I mean,
Did he? Yeah.
I watched that fight still, and I have to look away when he lands the right. Does that How does that affect the player individually? Like, because you never really lost a fight like that, where you were
No,
devastated.
I didn't. I didn't. And I'll tell you the one for me that got my attention and allowed me to do what I did for the number of years I did it. Um, that hospital fight, boy, and people always ask me, who's one of the toughest guys of that era? I say Clark Gillies. And not just because of that fight. Man, he was one scary cat out there. And if you pissed him off or you mess with one of his teammates like that, he could hurt you like he did at our hospital. But that can shake a guy's confidence in a big way. And it happened to me early on. I'm so glad it did. We were playing in the forum, and I ran Stan Jonathan. I hit him hard, and he got pissed. And no, actually, Bobby Miller. I hit Bobby Miller, and Jonathan came right after me. I fought Stan. Okay, I did okay. Didn't get my ass kicked. I hung in there with him. The next period, I'm playing with Doug Jarvis and Bob Gainey. Jarvis gets thrown out of the face-off circle, and Bob Gainey's going to go in, and we both go in together. And the Bruin player got kicked out too, and O'Reilly was taking the face-off. So Bob, I goes, let me take it. And Bob said, okay, here I am, a fucking rookie, telling Bob Gainey, let me take it. But he saw it was O'Reilly. So he's like, okay, go ahead. Not that he was scared. He was just like, all right, he wants to fucking go head to head with O'Reilly. So I take the draw and win it. And he fucking right away got pissed. Drop our gloves. And I just said, I knew he was a lefty. And I just went back and I hit him one punch. And then he hit me with two lefts. Boom, boom. And I couldn't see where the blood was coming. My eyes were watered. I stayed on my feet, but I'm like, and the refs got in and broke it up. And I went to the penalty box and I'm fucking it's leaking out of my head like crazy. I never broke my nose in all my years of playing hockey. My nose is it's like rubber. So I don't think it can break. So that's a good thing. And, but boy, did he wound me emotionally. I loved O'Reilly. He just fucking give it to me. And we're in the penalty box. And he's a hey kid. And he pointed to his left. And I'm like fucking hot. I'm like, you bastard. And I sat there and I said, you know what? And this is a turning point for me. And I always tell this story. I said, if I'm going to last in this league, I'm going to have a chance. I got to fight. I have to be smarter than that when I fight. Because I'm fighting guys that are bigger than me, more experienced at fighting on the ice than I am. I got to start to use my head. I knew he was a lefty. I said, screw it. I'm going to go toe to toe with you. No. When you have a guy that's bigger than you like that, as experienced as he was, you got to use your head when you fight him. And from that point forward, I always aimed to take away the strength of the guy I was fighting. If he was a righty and I knew it, I'm taking it away. If he's a lefty, I'm taking it away. And I'll pick my way through the fight. Another thing I started to do after that fight, and a good friend of mine told me to do this, who was a black belt in karate. He said, Chris, I'm watching you fight. You got to start throwing uppercuts. You know, there's no problem over the top, but you got to start throwing uppercuts. It'll be effective. And once you hit someone with an uppercut, they're going to be wide open for coming across with another punch. And I said, okay. And he said, and meanwhile, when you're throwing that uppercut, don't aim for the chin, aim for the chest. Because if you aim for the chest, you're not missing the chin. You're going to hit it. If you aim for the chin, a lot of times you'll miss. So he said, go for the chest. Even if you hit him in the chest, it's coming up and it's going to hit him. So those are a couple of things I did. So I started to really, you know, be a better technical fighter, and use my head and pick my way through fights instead of just fighting the way somebody else wanted me to, so they could have a chance at beating me. And for the most part, honestly, I got cut one night in New York. Barry Beck had a cast on and he hit me and cut me up here, and yeah, that was it. So I other than that, a couple black eyes, bloody noses, but nothing really bad.
Well, does your fighting strategy, like if you're fighting a guy like say Jay Miller, who's around your size,
Yeah.
or does it change with the size of the player? Like you mentioned Barry Beck, who I think at the time still he's alive, 6'3", 220. Larry Playfair, 6'4", 220. Like, because I noticed in a Beck fight, which I watched a lot of your fights yesterday, you kind of buried your head and rushed him.
Yeah.
And you got in. And
I did that a lot. I did it a lot because, I didn't want to get in a position where they have me out at the end of their arm.
Right.
And then I'm done. So I always wanted to get in first and grab, and then I'll go from there. Because if you just go in swing right away, you can catch one on the way in. And if you go down with your head, well, they're going to hit you in the helmet. So I would always go in and get planted first and grab, and then go from there. And like Jay, I had one in Boston with Jay right at the blue line where we went, I knew he could throw his left, but he was also a good righty. And I just went with him, and we had a great fight. I switched hands. It is, I picked my way through certain fights, but those big guys, I would always get in tight on them. I was like a tick, and I was a real good second half fighter. I could last long. I had good max VO2. I was always up there, top 3 on the team as far as max VO2. So, later in fights, I had something left where other guys would start to tire.
Yeah, I mean the bigger guys. I was watching a fight with Larry Playfair in front of the net, and you did the same thing as the Beck fight. You kind of just got in really tight. You threw some body punches, and that's why I loved your interview with him. I almost teared up to see two guys who you would seem.
I love him. I love that guy.
That's what I love. I mean, I met him in LA, and like as a kid, I was probably 15, and we got him. I wouldn't say he was on the downside, but he was. The career was nearing the end, I guess you'd say, and
he was later in his career for sure.
He was a giant man. He was so nice. He's like, "Hey, kid, how you doing?" And I'm like, "Jesus, I'd hate to fight."
Sweetheart of a guy. Absolutely love him.
Now he was an honorable fighter.
Yeah, he was.
Were there guys you feel free to mention their name that you really didn't like who weren't honorable fighters?
Off the top of my head, I really can't think of one. I think most of those guys, the guys who did that fight game, they were pretty honorable. I don't,
because you always
guys that
right.
off the top of my head, I can't think of one that didn't and I never paid no attention to the code. There's this code, unwritten code, whatever the code was. Listen, I'm out there fighting. I'm going to do everything I can to win. One thing I didn't do is when I got a guy down is do him. I remember I fought Pat Price and I hit him with a punch and he went right down. He was on the ice. I didn't even jump on him. I just skated away and went right to the penalty box. And as far as honorable guys, Kenny Linsman tried to scratch my eyes out, but he wasn't a fighter. We were fighting in the hallway that time in Boston. He was trying to scratch me, and it's like a fucking cat. But for the most part, those guys in that era, they were honorable. Drop your gloves. You lose the fight, they'll give you another fight. Stuff like that. They weren't. I never really got jumped by anybody. Yeah. So for the most part, I'd say most of them are honorable.
Now, with a guy like Lensman, who I loved your interview with him because I fucking hated that guy.
Yeah.
You mentioned he wouldn't fight. Uh, how annoying was that in that era, he would just keep his stick in his hand and he would not drop the gloves. I mean, what do you do? Like, you're one of the toughest players in the league. He's not going to fight. You don't want to take a major by just beating the shit out of him. Like, how do you handle he was like a precursor to Brad Marchand, because he was a good player too. But
Yeah, very good player.
what do you do when he's not going to answer the call?
You slash him. You cross check him. Back when you could do that, man. I did shit some nights, man. I'd be in fucking jail today. The way they call games now, but Kenny, how would I deal with him? Ignore him. Yeah, when you're playing against him, you got to be there. You got to get in his way. You can't let him be effective offensively. You had to play hard against him, but with all the other shit, you just ignore him, leave him alone. And, if he stepped out of line and you were on the ice and you had to do something, you're going to stick your nose in there. But once you do, someone else is coming to help him. So, for the most part, with a yappy little bastard like that, you just had to be careful. He was good with his stick. He jabbed you. He played dirty, which I don't blame him being that size. You got to find a way to navigate your way through the league and be effective. And he was really effective at that. He was dirty and he was fucking yappy.
Now, you've been a part of some of the wildest games in NHL history. I've got to ask you about the Friday Night Massacre. That game, I still watch it and get chills. Just, there was an initial, I think, Chelio shot it on the net and then a scrum. And you end up, I think, with Pat Price initially and then pair off with Randy Moeller, who was a tough kid, but not on your level. Did you know before that game that, hey, this game has the potential of a real powder keg?
Listen, every time we played them, it had a potential for that. What I'll say about this one being a playoff game, it's funny. Bruce Hood in his book blamed it on me because I hit Moeller first. And my whole thing, I was trying to get at Carbonneau. Dale Hunter had Carbonneau down. Guy's my center iceman. I always told Guy, do what you want out there, say what you want. I'll always be there for you. He was never one to take advantage of that. Like,
right.
Yeah, you go fight Nilan. He never did that, which a lot of respect for him, but he had a lot of respect for me that way. But once he got in trouble, I'm there. I ain't letting this happen. I had to get after Hunter. And Moeller was trying to keep me out, and I just, boom, I popped him. And it kind of set everything off. Even more so. But Hunter started he started the whole fucking thing. And when you start it, there's always somebody else that wants to finish it. And it was unfortunate what happened through all that. But Bruce Hood lost control of the game big time. It's terrible what happened to Jean Amel. He got sucker punched by his former roommate and teammate when he was looking to play.
Oh,
it was terrible. Yeah. And, it did get out of hand. But that the intensity of that rivalry because of the playoffs, because of Quebec City, small French city, Montreal, the big bilingual city, the Journal de Quebec, the Journal de Montreal, the newspapers. Who's got the better hot dogs in the arena? Montreal, the Forum's a better place than the Colisée. It had all this outside noise, and boy, when it came game time, the animosity was there. Bergeron coaching Quebec and Lemaire coaching Montreal. Um, it really it got crazy. And Bruce Hood, um, after the first round of fighting, I was kicked out. There were like 6 guys kicked out of the game. We went in the locker room, boom, get ready for the next period, come out. We find out, well, it all starts again. But
Wow.
I wasn't supposed to be on the ice. Hunter wasn't. This one was. We were all kicked out of the game. There were 6 of us. And no one ever came in and said, hey, you're out of the game, you're out of the game, boom, stay in the room. We come back out, and then it all started again. So the league, the officials made a big mistake there. And, yeah, it got crazy. It got out of hand. And, we end up winning that series. Steve Shutt said it best. He was sitting on the bench, wasn't playing a lot. And they talked to him. He scored 2 goals that game, big goals, too. And they asked him after the game about not playing. And he said, wow, big comeback. He said, well, geez, once we get all the idiots out of the game, we could play hockey. And basically that's what happened. And Shuddy came through big for us in that game.
I mean, I remember at one point the Hunter brothers were about to fight.
Yeah, no, they were. Like, I think Mark went after him to protect him more than fight him. But, 2 big farm boys going at it. Just shows you the passion, the emotion, the grit that the game had back in that day.
Oh, I loved it. I mean, I can't say I wish it. I watched the King game last night in Minnesota, and there were a couple fights, but they were so well-mannered fights.
Right.
Like Tanner
Mm-hmm.
was a tough kid for us. I think he helped the guy up. Like,
Yeah, like forget that.
I can't imagine you helping up, Dale Hunter. Like, hey, buddy.
No, no, no.
Now, we mentioned Dale Hunter. He kind of was in that Linsman mode where I don't recall a fight where he ever dropped the gloves. Who was a more annoying and or dangerous player, Linsman or Hunter? Hunter seemed like he would enjoy spearing you in the face.
Yeah, so would Linsman, both of them. I think Dale was probably a little dirtier in the sense that, or more dangerous in the sense that he could also hit. He was a strong kid. Not that Linsman wasn't, but he was thicker. He was bigger, and he had that. He had that head, that big head. One punch, you break your hand on that head. But Dale, honest to God, nothing but respect for him what he did. He was a great player. He's a great teammate, a leader. I disliked him then, but I knew. It's funny. I went to Brother Mark's wedding, and he was my teammate. And I love Mark Hunter. He's a great guy. And I got up there, and they asked me to give a little toast to Mark and Linda, and I said, um, so happy to see Mark and Linda married today. It's a beautiful ceremony. Thank you. I hope you have a long, happy, healthy life together. And whenever you decide to have children, if you have a little boy, I hope he doesn't grow up to be like his Uncle Dale. And the father and mother almost fell off the chair. It was funny. Dale liked it. He thought it was hilarious. But yeah, like really, really effective player. But both those guys, Linsman and Hunter, they were dirty. They were tough, for
Especially
sure.
back, Hunter had a kind of a coadjutor in Paul Gillis, who was also
Oh, oh yeah,
that's how
for
tough
sure.
it was. The agitators had backup, the fighters had backup. When you're in a face-off, against, say, a Paul Gillis, you tell him, hey, watch it, man. I'm not the guy to do that bullshit with. I mean, how much verbal fighting goes on before the physical fighting?
Not a lot. There'll be times like you on a face off, you'd be lined up with someone, and like say Big Larry, I'd say it's fucking puck goes down, we're going. Or Jay Miller when he first came in. There's one fight I fought him, I think twice in the game, but it was his first game up, and it was after I had hit Middleton, and they had everybody there. Brian Curran,
Tough kid.
Happy Feet, crazy, yeah. And in that fight, I'm lined up on the face-off, and they pulled the line off the ice, and they threw Jay out there with, I don't know, Mark Wharton, someone else. And Jay's there, and he's looking at me, and I look at him. I said, hey, that puck goes down, we're going. I know what the fuck you're here for. And he's, so the puck dropped, and I fucking dropped my glove. And I went to just going to throw a punch, and who's coming in behind him? Happy Feet Current, Baby Steps Brian. He comes flying in, and I throw the punch right by Jay's head and hit him. And then somebody else jumped on him, and then I concentrated on Jay. But that fight is on tape. You'll see it. It's right off a face-off kind of in front of our bench in Boston. And yeah, some of those yappy guys, not many guys who fought were that way. There were some, but it was usually,
Oh, you froze up there for a second. You still there, Chris? Chris, you still there? Oh, we're back. We're back. Sorry about that.
all right, here we go.
Well, when you're fighting, like Jay Miller seemed like he wasn't the most powerful puncher. Like,
Oh, he could punch.
but like, what's the difference in strategy when you're fighting, say, a John Cordick, who I know you were teammates with, who was maybe not the hardest puncher, versus a Joey Koser?
Well, Kosher, I would just certainly take his right away. He had a bomb right hand, but Jay could hit hard. He could take a punch too. He could give and take, that's a dangerous combination, because when you're hitting a guy with a good punch, and a lot of guys can hang in there when they get punched square, but sometimes you hit them in that right spot and they're in trouble. But for me, the strategy stayed the same for the most part, but the guys more my size, I would be able to stand and throw a little more, only because I never was worried about getting out
Right
at the end of their arm and not being able to hit them, and me taking all the punches. So guys my size, I still fought smart technically, but like if you watch one fight, I was with the Rangers. I fought Craig Berube. Now, yeah, Berube, I know he's a righty, and I have him right in here by the arm, and he's throwing. I just let him. And I have my head just like this, and I feel a punch is going by me, a couple grazed my helmet. I'm resisting him, and I can feel him getting tired. So I said, I'm going to let him throw a few more. And he threw about 6 punches. And I could feel him tiring. And after the 6th one, I let go, and I hit him with a left and stunned him. I hit him with the stun gun, and it wobbled him a little. He stayed in his feet, but it wobbled him. And I remember we got the penalty box. I said, yeah, you throwing all them right hands. I said, you didn't know I could fucking throw this, did you? And I dinged him. Now, I wasn't bad lefty, I was okay, but boy, my right was so much stronger. I have much more confidence in it. And there would be times I fight someone and I throw a left or two, and then I get back and want to go righty because I just didn't have as much confidence. And it's funny, I see guys today, they grab right in here with
Right.
their left and they're throwing away and they're tugging and throwing. And a lot of them, they end up getting in trouble when the other guy's swinging. And all you have to do is let go of that jersey. And it doesn't have to come from back there. It only has to come from there. Really quick shot, and you'll stun them. And then you can switch back and go with your right. So I had all that shit in my head. I was effective at being able to, adjust and pick my way through fights if I had to.
Speaking of adjusting in fights, another wild game you were involved in was the infamous pregame altercation with, of course, Ed Hospodar. He's
The
um,
Flyers, yeah.
and Claude Lemieux had a habit of putting the puck in the net at the end of warmups. I guess
Yeah.
Ed Hospodar and Chico Resch had intel that he was going to do it, so they both kind of went after Claude, and then all hell broke loose. How fucking scared were you, or maybe you weren't scared at all, when Dave Brown comes out with no jersey on, and how do you adjust to what do I grab onto? Like,
Well, my heart started beating a little faster, I can tell you that. Um, and it's funny, that whole thing, Lemieux and Corson were doing that as a superstition, like putting your right skate on all the time.
right,
They were, after the Flyers get off, we'll put a puck in their net, we'll win. Anyway, it come out in the newspaper that they were doing that in Philadelphia, I guess, and Montreal. I hadn't even, honestly, I didn't even know about it. That's how much I was paying attention to that nonsense. So I I was sitting in the locker room and I had my skates undone. And next thing Usher comes running in and he said, there's a fight, they're going after. I'm there, what? He said there's a fight. So everybody's like, boom, I tighten my skates up and real quick. And I go bombing out there. And when I get out there, I didn't even put my gloves on or anything. I went out with nothing. Just, I had my helmet on and out I went. And Big Shell Samuelson, I don't even think I had a helmet on now that I think of it. Big Shell Samuelson was there. And he was kind of keeping me away. And I'm thinking, am I going to fucking just throw a punch at this prick and get him out of here? Or maybe I should wait. I said I should wait because one, he's not dangerous. He's not going to do anything. Two, if I do that and I get tied up with him, then somebody else is going to have to fight Dave Brown. And I really thought that way because he's going to come after someone. Who's it going to be? He's going to go after Larry Robinson and maybe take him out of the game. Who knows? So all of a sudden I see him come out and Mike Keenan was back in the day. That was a brawl to end all brawls. And you could only dress so many guys for warm up after that, right? But Keenan dressed like 3 or 4 more guys for warm up. So they have more guys than we did, which sucked. And here we are in our building. And Brownie come out and Chelly, I guess, played with him somewhere and knew him. And Chelly was trying to keep him away from me. Chelly's one of them guys. He always tried to, and I loved him as a teammate. He always jumped in for me, helped me if I had an issue. But you look at the picture up top there.
right,
Me and O'Reilly getting squared up. That is Chelly trying to get in there to
right.
stop. And I'm like, Chelly, get the fuck out of here, will you? Let this. And Chelly's like, but that's how he was. He was an unbelievable teammate like that. Anyway, he was trying to keep Brownie from getting to me. He said, relax, talking to him, trying to soften him up. And Brownie, we were in a scrum, and Gainey was there trying to keep us separated. Then, he kept trying to come and come. And finally, I just threw a punch. I said, fuck, let's go. And I'm thinking, how am I going to do this? And I tried to get leverage by grabbing his pants, but that was really difficult.
Right.
So I kind of had him by the top of the pants and I was throwing. I remember I hit him a few times. He hit me. And I remember we're going for a little bit. Then we'd rest a little because he was tired too. He was fucking dead tired. And we started throwing again. And then we got to a point where, well, okay, let's rest again. And we're resting. I'm holding on to him. He's holding on to me. And he whispers down in my ear. He goes, "Have you had enough?" And I go, "No." And boom, I threw another punch and we got going again. I went down. We both went down. Then we got back to our feet. That, honest to God, I felt like that was probably one of my longest fight. I was so effing tired after that fight. I remember going in the locker room. Now I had to play the game. Fucking Dave sat in the bench the whole game. And I remember going in the room and sat there for a little bit. My neck was all tightened up from being tense and fighting and swinging and then going down and getting up again. I was junk that game, and we end up losing the game in the series. But um, I just I was junk. Yeah, that was crazy. Listen, I don't miss the brawling at all. I hated it. I had a couple of them in the American Hockey League. It's really dangerous, um, and I don't have a problem with you guys fighting, obviously, but yeah, the game has changed that way. You don't see it as much. Um, not the same. Not the same anymore.
Yeah, I mean, there's very few. I mean, maybe last year outside of the Devils, Rangers, when they won,
Dust up.
yeah, that's a good word for it. When
Yeah,
the Devils wanted revenge on Rimpe, who seems
yeah,
kind of a reckless player at times. And then it's funny, the Devils and Rangers were involved in another one a few years ago with I think it was Bolton and Brandon Prust, and but outside,
yeah. That where they all the five of them went. It was a 5-on-5. That was awesome. That was funny to see, but because you were like, this isn't supposed to happen at this point
yeah,
in the NHL. So it was kind of a shocker. And it's funny now. You'll see the article next day in the paper when there's a something like that happens. They'll say, "Oh, last night there were 98 minutes in penalties," and you're like, "What? Fucking why even mention that?" I mean, it used to be 200, 300 minutes. Guy, like last night, the Canadians and the Bruins had over 300 minutes in penalties.
I mean,
Like now they mention 98, and everybody's shocked.
that's what I grew up with. So you're right. When I see someone said the other night, "Oh, there's 45 minutes in penalties." 45 minutes. Randy Holt got 78 in one game. Like, what is that?
Right, right.
Um,
That's a night.
but I mean, now we talk a lot about instigators and shit disturbers. You obviously played with Claude Lemieux and a few other guys who were, I guess you'd call them stick men. Did you ever go up to them and go, "Hey, bro, tonight you might have to fight your own battles"? Like, because you were the toughest guy in the Canadians. You later had help with Kordic and others coming in. But did you ever like sit down with Claude Lemieux or Tremblay earlier and go, "Hey, man, you got to relax every now and then. I can't fight everyone's fucking battle."
Yeah, never, never. I never did that. Claude Lemieux, who I'll say it was as responsible for us winning the Stanley Cup in 1986 as Patrick was. They came 1-2 in the Conn Smythe. Claude scored 5 game-winning goals, 2 in overtime, and the biggest one against the Hartford Whalers. I'm not saying we couldn't have won
Right.
without Patrick. We could have won with another goalie in there, but Patrick was unbelievable. He was. but we were a really good defensive team. We had great defensive structure. We could play in close games. Um, those 2-1 games we could win. 5-1 games we could win. But those 2-1 games, we were comfortable in those games. And Claude Lemieux, I'll never forget that goal. I'd never have a ring on my finger if it wasn't for him. And I say that, I mean it. Hartford, Babbage scores a goal with less than a minute to play. He got the puck right in front of our bench. I remember he wound up and boom, top corner it went. Patrick didn't see it. 3-3 with 40 seconds left in the game. And I remember going in the locker. I remember the feeling on the bench. It was like, fuck, how do we do this? We had this game. And they tie it up. They had a hell of a team too, Hartford. And we go in the locker room and you hear all the same stuff. Make sure everything ahead, get it out. Don't lose the puck at our blue line. Make sure you get to their blue line. It gets in behind them. Put everything on the net. Don't look to pass, shoot, be responsible out there, blah, blah, blah. Don't stop skating. Keep your feet moving. Don't be a passenger. All these things. And, we get out there and sure enough, I think I played one shift. I come in and sat down. I turned around and there it is. The puck's in that end and Pepe grabbed that, knocked somebody on their ass behind the net. And he come out on his backhand and right up top and the series was over. Now, Pepe Lemieux, big time playoff player.
Oh, 100%.
He was a pain in the ass. Pepe Lemieux was a pain in the ass. That kid, he was immature in a lot of ways coming in. He's grown so much after leaving Quebec and going to the States. He's a well-read kid. He's a bright kid, but shit he did on the ice, I hated. I hated some of the stuff he would do, some of the things he would say to opposing players, like bad shit. Like, I fucked your wife last night,
I would imagine.
Yeah, like really stupid shit. And I didn't like it. A lot of my teammates didn't either, but we knew that was Pep. He was effective. He would go guys in to sucker punch him, then he'd go down and we'd get a power play and score a goal and thank you, Pepe. But guys didn't like that. But again, I put my money on that guy any day when it come playoff time. He was an incredible teammate that way. Even though I didn't like some of those things he did, Pep, I had respect for his game without all the nonsense, but that's part of what made him.
I would imagine, kind of goes to the point I made a few minutes ago where you knew if he says something to, the other
Cam
team.
Neal.
Yeah, like you're going to have to be the one who cleans that mess up. Or, it's one of my favorite beatdowns ever was when there was a big brawl between Montreal and Quebec. And somehow Lemieux gets paired up with Darren Kimball, who was a big Western League kid.
Kimby, yeah. I wasn't here then. Yeah.
You could see the joy in Kimball's face, knowing that all the refs are busy. He's looking at, I think, Bergeron for permission.
I got him alone.
Someone gives him the okay from the bench, and he just starts throttling it with right hands. I don't think I've ever seen a player so happy on the ice.
Right. And plus, a lot of other people, too.
Yeah, I got the feeling that even some of the Canadians were like, we probably shouldn't be so happy here. Now, what led to your departure in Montreal? Because your Ranger period is one of my favorite periods of your career. We'll get into that in a second, but was it just, because they had brought in some younger guys, Kordic and a kid like Mamesso and others. Did you get a sense of, hey, why are they bringing in all these younger tough guys?
Yeah, I was always a little worried about that, but I knew John couldn't play.
Right.
John was an effective player. Yeah, I felt bad for John in a lot of ways. He never wanted to really do the job he was doing. When he was playing junior, he was told by a scout, "Hey, if you ever want to make it, you got to stop fighting. You got to do that job because that's something that's needed by a lot of teams." And anyway, that's when he got on the steroids. He got big, and John was on the roids, and that can have a funny way of making you angry, and
Right.
it affects you that way. And I think that helped him do the job that he didn't want to do. And I felt bad for him, to be honest with you. And Johnny, even though he was going for my job, um, I tried to I tried to help him along, and he didn't even drink when he came in here. And then he started running with the wrong people, and the trouble started. But God rest his soul. Again, it's terrible what happened to him. But I will just say, um, what happened with me and my departure was more to do with me and the coach than anything else. We were going through a tough time. We were in Hartford, and we weren't winning games. And honestly, the coach it wasn't a good coach. He wasn't bright. Uh, the year we won the cup, certainly he was the coach, but you ask anybody, Bob Gainey and Larry Robinson had control of that team. Um, the coach, like Bob Gainey said it best. He said, "You don't always have to like your coach, but you have to respect them." And I didn't respect my coach because he didn't respect me.
Right.
And I always said to myself, if a coach ever grabs me and tells me to go out and fight, I'm going to tell him to go fuck himself. There's going to be a problem. And he was going around the room singling guys out. And he came to me and he said, and Chris Nilan, he said to Brian Screwland, "Hey, Screwland, when's the last time you win a face-off?" And Bob Gainey, he wouldn't say the Bob, but and Metznezan, when's the last time you score a goal? And he came to me and said, and Chris Nilan, when is the last time you had a fight? And I said, hey, fuck you. What do you know about fighting? You telling me to go fucking fight? Fuck you. So, and I stayed true to myself because I never would accept that. And I stayed true to myself. But it cost me. And a couple of variables in here that I believe led to that trade. Serge Savard, who was the GM, who I loved, and he loved me, and still does. We're very good friends to this day. His best friend died the day before I got traded. And I think when he got that phone call from Perron, he was like, fuck, I don't have time to deal with this shit. And he even said in his book, Serge, it was the worst trade he made. He that was a big part of it, I think. And I ended up getting traded. I was shocked. It almost broke me. But the thing that saved me is that I did stay true to myself, and I had to. And I always clung to that. That, listen, Chris, you said to yourself you'd never let this happen, and you didn't. But now you're paying a price for it. And it fucking crushed me. I never wanted to play for another team than the Montreal Canadiens. And it was really hard for me to move on. It was real hard.
Were you? I have it in my head that you weren't you supposed to be going to St. Louis or some American team?
Yeah. I
And
got traded to St. Louis, and I told Serge I wouldn't go. Why? I said, I don't want to go to St. Louis. I said, I want to be closer to my family in the East.
what?
He said, well, what are you talking about? I said, I want to go to Boston. He said, I can't do that, big boy. You know that. So I said, "How about New York, the Rangers? Call Phil, and they had the deal done in 10 minutes. It was done, and I ended up going to New York. Um, but boy, yeah, it was really hard. I don't know how guys go from team to team. I had so much passion and love for the organization, for the opportunity they gave me, and then they didn't want me to be just a fighter. They wanted me to play hockey, and they
Right.
helped me do that. Right? I became that for me the proudest thing about my career was the fact that I became an everyday NHL player, and I had a great role as being an effective shutdown line. I was part of a line with two Hall of Famers that we had a great thing going. We were a great shutdown line, and we could also score. We'd score 60, 65, 70 goals a year as a checking line. That's
Yeah.
pretty damn good. And yeah, so yeah, it was hard for me to leave. Like I said, I was never quite the same.
Well, I loved
I
that.
still did my job. I still did my job. I protected my teammates, but playing for the Rangers, playing for the Bruins, it wasn't the same as playing for the Montreal Canadiens for
Oh, I
me.
understand, but I loved Esposito as a general manager. He treated it like fantasy hockey. Like he
Yeah, he's a little too much.
he traded for Bobby Carpenter. Didn't work out. 2 weeks later, he traded him. It was like as a fan, it was fun. Um, but the Rangers, the teams that you were on, you had some tough teammates. Like uh, I've always been obsessed with Michel Petit. Just drafted 11th overall, could score, could pass, hung in there with a
He's
prime.
a tough kid.
Well, he hung in there with a prime prober. He might not have won the fight, but like he didn't get killed. Um,
I saw Michelle fight a few times. He's a really tough kid. He surprised the shit out of me, I tell you. I didn't know he was as tough as he was. He didn't go around looking for it, but he wasn't a pushover. That wasn't first on his agenda. And I liked him that way. I really did. He was a tough kid. You know, Rudy Pocek was there. He came in, a few guys that, you know, and they needed those guys because fuck, I broke my arm twice. I hurt my knee. I had a hockey hernia in New York. I tore a knee ligament. I I was a fucking mess in New York. It started taking its toll on me, and my body was starting to break down.
with a guy like Poshek, when you got there, because he was one of my favorites, just
I love Rudy.
he seemed to enjoy his role. um,
Oh, he loved it. Right? If he never fought, he'd have never played a game in the NHL. And he got to the highest level of the game because he could fight. And then he got an opportunity to play. Again, not the best player, but a great teammate. And, he fulfilled a dream of his of one day playing the NHL. He got there. That's the beauty of the NHL back then, right? That there were guys, and people say, oh, guys sit the bench on. But boy, it was that was such a part of the game back then. It allowed the fancy guys, the guys who tiptoed through the tulips, it allowed them um, the leeway to go and ply their trade and score goals and play hockey.
I mean, I gotta admit, Knuckles, I do miss a player like Wayne Van Dorp. Like that guy,
Yeah, yeah. Wayne Van Dort.
talk about big
Yeah.
heads. Holy fuck.
Oh my God, huge, huge, big
Uh,
Wayne.
I miss guys like that, Link Gates, who could play
The
actually.
missing link. The missing link.
He could actually play. I mean, then he got in the motorcycle accident and wasn't really
Yeah.
the same after that. But um, so you had a couple years in New York. They were up and down, injury wise. And then you in a Boston Bruins uniform. It just didn't work for me. And I know you're from there. Like it's
Good
like
for you.
it just the visual was just like I can't.
Couple things. My father didn't want me to come. My
What?
father said, "Don't come back here. Fuck them. You know, they never drafted you. One, two, the fan base treated you like shit. Family, everything. Don't come back here." I should have listened to my father. But looking back, um, good things happened there too. I love playing for Mike Milbury. Um, I, he named me the All-Star team, which he was making a point, I think, to the league, but still, myself and Brian Scrilland, he named us the All-Star team. I had broken my ankle playing basketball. I couldn't play in that game, but I'll never forget the first night there. I was nervous as shit. I mean, how are they going to react to me? And Ray Bork said, "Chris, fucking relax." I sat next to Porky Borky, and he said to me, "Will you relax? They're going to love you. They're going to accept you. Don't worry." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, sure." And sure enough, I come out, and it felt good because all the years and all the abuse in that building, and I fulfilled a childhood dream. But the problem was I got there too late. I think even once I healed up in that first year in Boston, I was playing pretty good. Um, and then I broke my ankle, and it was all downhill from there. Um, and I remember Bonus came in, and I had a fight in training camp. I hit Bob Beers. I punched him with my glove on. He went down. They were pissed at me because I hit a teammate, but he stepped up to hit me,
Right.
and I just got out of the way. And I'm thinking, you know what? I ain't Ray Bork and I ain't Cam Neely. But if that's either one of them, you don't do that.
Right.
I've been around the league long enough. And they put me on the B squad. And in Boston, when you're on the B squad, it was like they're rubbing your nose in shit. The writing's on the wall. So Rick Bonus took over. And as a person, I love Rick Bonus. He's a great human being. He's a good man. He was a good player. I think he was a great assistant coach. And as of late, he was a pretty good head coach, too. But he was young, and they put him in as a head coach. And I really think Sinden and Milbury were kind of, they could help him along and get him to do his thing. But I think he also listened to them quite a bit. So that second year in Boston, I come back from the broken ankle, and the Bruins have and I got through training camp, and I'm there, and we go on the road. The Bruins always have a long road trip beginning of the year, and we head out west. I don't play one game. I'm practicing, I'm riding the bike, blah, blah, blah. We go through, we're in our sixth game on the road. It's in Chicago. We're heading home the next day. I go in the warm up. I'm like, fuck, I'm playing at Chicago Stadium. We're going to play. Take your stuff off. So I'm out riding the bike after warm up, and Bonus walks by me. He goes, "I'm really proud of the way you're dealing with us." I'm like, just said to myself, like, fuck you.
Right.
Fuck you. I need your fucking pat in the ass. I didn't say anything. I just kept riding the bike, ignored him. So that whole road trip, Lyndon Byers was fighting, and another kid named Alan Stewart.
Up, kid.
And they were fighting every night. And we get back to Boston after Chicago, and we have a day off, and then we're going to practice. We come to practice on Monday. No Alan Stewart. He packed up his car and left Boston. He took off. He went home. He quit hockey.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he quit hockey. He was sick of fighting, sick of all the shit. And we're in practice, and we're out there bombing around. We're doing drills, have a scrimmage, and Lyndon Byers gets hit with a slap shot in the ankle, breaks his ankle. So after practice, I go in, I'm sitting in the room, I'm taking my shit off. And Bonus comes up to me with a big smile. Hey, Chris, you ready to go tomorrow night? I said, hey, Rick, go fuck yourself. He said, what? I said, go fuck yourself. So, well, you talk to me like that? I said, well, you expect me to respect you the way you fucking, how you dealt with me here? You know, you want me to go through a fucking wall for you? Fuck you. So I didn't play.
Who were you?
And
Who would you have played?
well, that night,
Yeah.
no, I don't know who it was, the team, but didn't matter. I just know what I said to him. So I didn't play for the next three games. And then Joe Fitzgerald wrote an article in the paper that Mike Milbury should get off his ass and settle this thing between Bonus and Nilan. So, boom, sure enough, we have a meeting. Mike said, Chris, what, you can't tell the coach go fuck himself. I said, I know, but Mike, I said, I'm an emotional player, one. Two, you know, I'll fucking do anything for my teammates and my team. And I said, I got shit on, no explanation. I said, I'm not Neely, I'm not Book, but I've been around as long as those fucking guys have. Can you imagine doing that to those two guys? How they would have fucking dealt with it? You know, I said, I didn't deal with it good, but, you know, yeah, I told him to go fuck himself. He said, well, can we settle this? I mean, yeah, all right. I'm sorry I said it to you, but, you know, I didn't like the way you fucking treated me. What do you expect? And he said, well, not that. I said, well, you know, that's the way I dealt with it. And he said, can we put this behind us? I said, sure. I'll fucking be the good teammate and fuck, I'll work my balls off. And I did. So we play New Jersey the next night. I scored 2 goals. I played more than I've ever played. I don't know. I think I played fucking 22 minutes.
Right.
He fucking overplayed me. Almost like, you want to fucking play? I'll show you. Instead of just playing me regular,
Right.
he fucking give me the, I'll show you. I was fucking dead. But I was so happy because I did score 2 goals that game. And it was fucking, I'm like, fuck you. But things were never the same after that. Um, they put me on waivers. I didn't know it. And anyway, coming up to the trade deadline, I mean, I got to get the fuck out of here. And I I called Serge Savad. I said, Serge, can you get me the fuck out of here, please? Bring me home. He said, okay, big boy. I am going to watch the waiver wire. And the deadline was for waiver wire or trades was at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I went to practice that day. I come off, and it was like 2:59 and a half, and nothing yet. No one came to me, and nothing. Not 3 o'clock comes. I'm like, whoa, I'm fucked. And I'm just getting ready to leave, and someone come down and said, hey, Montreal picked you up. You're going back. And I'm like, yeah, fuck. And I went back, and Big Surge allowed me the opportunity to come back and retire with the jersey that I started with, and I came full circle, and I was happy to be back, and I retired at the end of that season, and yeah, so it was cool.
Do you
It was
remember?
really cool.
Do you remember your last fight?
I don't.
Um,
I don't. That's funny. I remember when I was in Boston that year, I fought. No, maybe it was the year before. No, I don't know, but I fought Stu Grimson. We played Chicago,
tough man.
and I hung in there with him. It was fucking tough though. I didn't go down. I stayed on my feet. I fucking fought him. I remember going to the box. Man, that fucking, it's happening to me now. I'm going after all these fucking big names, and now they're coming after me. And Um, I felt I was losing it, and you can't own up to it. You can't say anything to your teammates. You can't say anything to your coach. You got to eat that shit yourself. So once you start questioning yourself, like I was at the end, I said, "Oh fuck, it's I don't have the jump I had. I don't have this. You're in trouble." And I still gave it my all, but I know I wasn't, I was losing it. And the next night we played Hartford, and I fought Jim McKenzie.
Big boy.
Fucking, he was throwing punches and hitting. And again, I stayed on my feet. And I get to the penalty box, and I'm like, holy fuck, this is getting tougher. Not getting any easier. And, I knew I was done. You know, it's hard to admit it, but I knew I was done.
Well, because when you came into the league, there weren't that many giant players. There was, Clark Gillies. It was almost a
Yeah,
pass.
there's some big guys. There's some tall, tough guys. I mean, Semenko, Dave Brown, Ben Wilson, Cockner, Chikrin. Yeah, when I first come in, maybe not as big, but there was still big guys.
Oh, for
Not maybe
sure.
not like you see today. No.
Like I would say, right around when you retired, you started seeing almost like the super heavyweights, kind of like Grimson and
The steroid era.
Christoph Oliwa, who was a
Yeah.
monster. Troy Crowder, who was a pretty big boy. Um, they were in now the guys. I mean, how would you go about fighting Matt Rimpe? 6'8", two. Like, would you just do the
I'd get in
dynamite?
tight on him. Just like that kid from Columbus. He fucking nailed him. You get in tight on him, he can't really punch. You gotta throw uppercuts on him. That kid from Columbus who fought him, I forget his name.
Didier.
He fucking give it to him. Yeah, yeah, Olivier. He is so wide open, no technique. The kid's gonna get hurt. It's good. He got sent down. They should send him down there and play him. If he wants to be an NHL one day, great. But and I love his game. I love his, being there for his teammates and everything. But he's got to clean that up, or he's gonna get hurt. He already did get hurt. He's taken some serious fucking punches to the head.
Yeah.
Not little love taps either. So again, I like the kid. I'm all for him, but yeah, he needs some help.
I mean, I know he over the summer it was well publicized. He took basically fighting lessons from George Laraque, who is it's a good guy.
Which I don't get.
I,
And I get it, but I don't get why you're throwing fucking uppercuts. Who's he fighting? Jack in the fucking beanstalk? He's the tallest guy in the league. When's he gonna throw an uppercut?
probably not too many times.
I mean, you could theoretically, but come on, he should be, you know, he's got that length, he's got the ability. It's just, you got to plant big guy like that. Like you got to plant your feet, and it's really hard on skates, right? But if you can plant them and bend those knees a little and be in a position where you keep your base as much as you can, you're going to do all right. And some of those big guys have a tougher time doing that. And once you get them off balance, you can open them up big time. Not necessarily cut them open, but open them up to getting punched square in the face because of their balance. You can pull them off balance a little. So, yeah, not that I'll never throw an uppercut, but that kid, he needs to learn how to fight so he doesn't get hit as much as he's been getting hit. You're gonna get hit, but when you get hit, those repetitive good blows to the head, it's not a good thing.
Let's just and I don't know if he'll have the opportunity to improve on his craft in the NHL because there's just not many guys who fight anymore. Maybe Tom
No,
Wilson, Reeves in Toronto, maybe. Maybe six guys who fight with any routinely regularity. So, Chris,
it's funny. I never.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I never counted my fights, right? But you know, the number of fights that you have, like they don't count exhibition, they don't count playoffs. Like
Right.
I had a shitload of fights in the playoffs. I had a shitload of fights in exhibition season. But regardless, now it's funny. You see, a guy had 10 fights. He led the league, right? I remember my trainer coming up to me who used to tape me down all the time and tie my tie down. Sylvain Toupin, he loved doing that, Sylvain. And he came to me one night and he said, "Hey, big boy, you know what? You have 32 fights already this year." And I'm like, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, I didn't count them. I just fucking did it, right?" He said, "You have 32 fights." I'm like, "Oh, cool." Should I go for 33, Sylvain? But it was just funny. Like now you get 10 fights and you're like a fucking world champion.
And they're nice fights. Like there's no,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want guys to get hurt. Like I said, I'm just a dummy fan, but I do miss the '80s era of, like I remember when the Rangers and Islanders would play. I would clear my schedule and just
Yeah.
or the Nordiques and Canadians, or the Canadians and the Bruins, and the Whalers always had tough guys. Uh,
Yeah.
and Buffalo was always had a laundry list of tough guys, and now it's just, what do you think the league could do to make? I'm not saying bring the game back to the '80s, but most games I watch nowadays, King games included, it's like watching a glorified bag skate. Like there's not a lot of emotion in the game today. And I know the league probably doesn't want to increase fighting, but there's got to be something they can do to, I don't know, make the game more watchable.
I have a couple things. Um, and they're not popular because listen, these kids are really talented today, right? Passing the puck, handling the puck, uber talent. Okay, that way. Um, not one of them knows what a two-line pass is.
Right.
Now, if you're worried about the health of the game and the players, it wouldn't be such a bad thing to put it in. You watch a lot of times, fuck, the puck gets sent from behind the net or outside the net to the red line. It gets chipped in. Away they go. It's coming the other way. At times you see the sustained forecheck. Playoffs you see a bit more because of everything that's on the line. The intensity level goes up, everything. But I'd like to see the red line back in. It'd be better for the health of the players. If these guys are that good, right? Let's see them come up the ice together as a 5-man unit, and that's what putting the red line would do. You can't just fucking take off and go now. You have to come up together and pass their way through whatever defense the other team throws at you. And then if you get into the neutral zone, now you got two defensemen that are looking to maybe stand up at the blue line and keep you from entering that zone. So if you put it in behind them, they have to turn and go get it. You have an opportunity now to establish a forecheck and maybe get a cycle going and get a sustained forecheck going in the offensive zone. And now you see that long pass, stretch pass tipped in, D-man cheats off, gets it. By the time the forecheck is there, they're coming back at you. And that happens a lot in the game. And
Right.
now there's times that no, guys attack the line and they get in. But it seems like a lot of chaos, no structure.
Right.
Um, I don't think the red line will go for the league because they want nothing but speed, fast, go, and no rhyme or reason for it a lot of times. So I'd really like to see that if they could put that in, and let's see how good these kids are. How good are they really? Can they come up the ice together as a 5-man unit and pass their way through that neutral zone out of their own end into the neutral zone into the far end of the offensive zone?
I mean, I watched
But That would be very unpopular.
Well, do you think if they loosened up the refereeing on the physical play, like I watched some of your games last night, and every play would be a penalty,
Yeah.
in today's game. And I'm not saying allow boarding and,
No, I
but
get you. A little more rough stuff.
I mean, because
But again,
I look at a player like Claude.
you,
Yeah, I mean, like
yeah,
Claude Lemieux's kid, Brendan Lemieux.
yeah,
He's like he can't stick on one team because the league has seemed to neuter him. Like, hey, man, this ain't your dad's era. We don't do that shit now. I would like to.
yeah. That and he's not too popular. He's not too popular with his teammates, I heard, but
Yeah, I mean,
who knows?
I think I do. I had some friends on the Kings who come see me at the comedy
He's
store.
not too popular.
You know, he. I guess I'm going to use a pro wrestling term. He seems to go into business for himself a lot,
Yeah.
which is
Uh,
too bad because I think it was 3 seasons ago, the first year the Kings played the Oilers in the playoffs. He played exactly like his dad, right on the line.
yeah.
He stepped over one or two times on McDavid. Of course, they scored a goal on the power play, but I
Pain
miss.
in the ass to play against, right? Pain in the ass to play against.
Yeah, you don't really have that anymore outside of maybe Marchand
Yeah.
and maybe Tom Wilson. Although they score so much now that you could tell they're like, we're not doing that shit. I'd rather score a goal. Uh,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I guess the whole point of this interview, Chris, is I miss your era of hockey.
Well, that's fine. I think a lot of people do. And listen, it's funny. The league doesn't want the violence, right? Um, Bettman got the NHL on TV in the States, and that was his goal from when he first got in there. On He wanted it on TV. He wanted to get it in the States because, again, in Canada you don't have a problem with that. In the States you did. It was all just regional stuff, and he wanted to get it on um, every night so you can see hockey every night, no matter what. And how do you do that? Well, he figured he had to clean the game up because people didn't want to see all the brawls. They didn't want to see the fighting in the States. Although there is a lot of people that love that. Certainly Boston fans, Philly. Yeah, a lot of people. But what happens? What lends to that type of hockey? Rivalries.
Right.
Yeah, the rules somewhat, but rivalries. So I think it was 2 years ago they had rivalry week in the NHL. I think the Rangers were playing the fucking Coyotes. Hello, rivalry week. What? Just nothing, nothing. And I look at Boston, Montreal now. It's like we used to play 4 times exhibition, fucking 8 times during the season, four in there, four in Montreal, and then we'd see them in the playoffs. We fucking hated each other by the time we get the playoffs. Now they played in the very beginning of the season. They don't see him again until March, I think. Boston, the Montreal Canadiens. Hello, they play him 3 times, so they can see Connor McDavid in here one time. Like, hello, there's no more rivalries like that. I mean, you you'll get them. Rivalries are born of playing teams in the playoffs a lot, and yes, during the regular season a lot. And it used to be that way. Not anymore. We played Quebec fucking 8 times. That old Adams division was fucking beautiful. It was beautiful.
I mean,
No more.
each team in the Adams division had 2 to 3 legit heavyweights, another
Crazy.
2 to 3 middleweights, and then guys like Paul Gillis and Linsman and
Yeah.
Ray Ferraro was kind of chippy. I mean, every team had like multiple people.
Old time hockey. Old time hockey.
Oh, I mean, I remember the preseason. The first thing I would do is look at the rosters, see who the camp invites were, and they were all tough guys. Like, the
Yeah.
Canadians. They'd invite Steve Martinson and Jacques Mayotte and the Roberge brothers, and
Yeah.
probably the most popular fight tapes of all time are the Quebec Nordique training camp from the late '80s. They had like Gord Donnelly, the McCrae brothers, Craig Smith,
Yeah.
all these Richard Zimlack, all these crazy guys. And
Price.
yeah, who was like probably the best player on the team. Because someone had,
Yeah.
it was just. I'm glad I grew up in the era I did. So, Chris, I could talk to you all day, but I know you have your own podcast to do. Where can
Yeah.
people find your podcast?
Well, I just went to a new network called the Sick Podcast Network, and it's Raw Knuckles at the Sick Podcast Network. And yeah, it's cool. I just actually I do all mine on the computer, right? Because I'm not like Rogan or
Who
Sean
is?
Ryan. They fly their guests in, and you sit down with them. But yes, Monday I sat down with my former teammate Matt Snasland. He was in town, and it actually came out today. The Raw podcast. We had a great conversation. A friend of mine owns, well, in his home he has a basement. It's called the Habs Cave. He's on Instagram. Check it out. It is incredible collection of Montreal Canadiens memorabilia. You'd be shocked. You walked in that place. Matt's came in. He was like he couldn't believe it. But we did it from the Habs Cave. It was really really the different dynamic when you're able to sit down with someone
Oh, I
as
agree.
opposed to I enjoy this, but when you sit down there with someone and God, I wish I could do all my podcasts like that, but that's the way it is in today's day and age. But unless you're Sean Ryan or Joe Rogan, and
Well,
that we're not, I guess.
I could definitely tell you I'm not. But and where can people find you on Instagram and Twitter and all that good stuff?
Instagram Knuckles Nilan, Twitter Knuckles Nilan, yeah, it, and then my website is knucklesnilan.com,
Do you have like
and
merch
everything.
people could buy like T-shirts or something?
Yeah, sweatshirts, hoodies, hats, all that stuff. We try and my wife Jamie handles all that, and she keeps trying to put stuff out there and give the fans um, little something to join the Knuckles cause by. It's pretty cool. It's good stuff.
Well,
And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
before I forget, I'd like to first off thank our mutual friend Dennis Bernstein for arranging this.
I
Um,
love Dennis. Good man,
Dennis
right?
is Dennis is the best, but it was all due to him linking us together. Because you probably would have gotten an email from me and go, "Who the fuck is this guy?" Um,
Well, it's funny. You'd be surprised. Jamie, my wife, she gets all my email, all that stuff, and everything that comes here, she makes me aware of. We go over it, whether it's somebody wants an autograph or somebody wants me on their podcast. I did a podcast, okay, last 2 weeks ago with a Habs fan from Toronto who is 12 years old. He's starting his podcast. And he wrote me and he said, I'm starting my podcast. I would love to have you on. I'm a big fan. My father, blah, 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 used to watch you, and I would love to have you on. I did it. I've done a couple podcasts with kids. So I do. We go through everything and we answer everybody and pay attention to the fan base for sure, and people who wanna maybe talk to me. So yeah, been fun, and I just know how difficult it is, right?
yeah,
Trying to
so
trying to get people to come on and trying to get people to give some time. so you can, apply your new trade, and that's the podcast world.
Well,
So
people should really, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, but like your podcast is so good because you interview like a guy like Craig Cox, who, you know,
yeah,
awesome interview, and Larry
a lot
Playfair,
of fun.
and Ken Lensman. You made me like Ken Lensman. You're like, oh,
There you go.
he's a surfer. Like that's fucking nuts.
No, it's unbelievable. No, a surfer. This guy, he's he is nuts. Off his house in New Hampshire, right off the house, there's a break. Okay, he is out there every day in the winter surfing. Every day, he goes out. He puts the wetsuit on. I played some alumni games down there, and Kenny would come in and getting ready for hockey, and his face is all red right here from having the hood on, bright red, and then the rest of him is white, and he's all salty and crusty, and he gets out there and he plays that way, salty and crusty.
I fucking hated that guy so much. But I thought a fun way to end the interview would, it's like a word association, Chris. I don't know who you like, I was talking with George McPhee the other day at the Kings rookie tournament, and I brought up
Yeah.
some of his fights, and he said to me, "Yeah, one guy still has a problem with me." So I'm going to mention a name. He wouldn't tell me. I'm going to guess it was
Oh,
Rick.
okay.
I would guess it was Rick Tocchet because they had some scraps where George might have bloodied him, and I don't know. Tocchet seems like the type of guy who hold a grudge.
Yeah, Talk's not. I don't know. I don't think so. Talk's a pretty good guy, really good guy, actually.
I mean, but
Yeah, that's funny, and I love George too. George is awesome.
well, he was one of my favorite guys to watch because he just seemed so fucking. He was smaller than you, like he was fucking
He
fearful.
had long arms though, and he got the goddamn left. He could go. He's a tough prick.
Oh, I
George.
brought up the fight in Philly he had with Hospodar, and he was very nice. Took a picture with me, big smile, and then I brought up that fight, and his demeanor totally changed. He's like, "He hurt my friend. I had to get him." So we're gonna
Right.
do that with you.
All right.
If you have a funny, antidote, great. If you don't like the guy, you could just say, "Hey, I didn't really."
It doesn't have to. It can be more than one word, right?
100%. So we'll
Okay.
start off with Larry Playfair.
Oh, I all I can say is I love him.
Done deal. Because it was one of the fights I watched last night. Barry Beck.
Respect.
Okay, that's great. Randy Moeller. If Randy Moeller walks into a market you're in, do you guys say hello to each other?
Great teammate, Randy Moeller.
Oh, that's good.
We played together in New York, and funny. He said I got cut worse shaving. He said when I cut him that night.
Now I remember Hospodar had a funny story when he got traded to Buffalo, and his first day in, he opens up the training room door, and Clark Gillies bumps into him because Clark was in Buffalo, and they kind of became friends. Is that how it was with like you and Moeller? Like you're like, hey man, we just had to
Oh
do.
yeah, we're friends right away. Oh yeah, yeah, right away. Really like Randy Moeller. Hockey guys, for the most part, 99.999% are great guys.
All right, let me see. Paul Holmgren.
Ooh, blazed the way for guys like me, a U.S. player who um, not only played the game with passion and intensity, went on into management and did a great job. We're really, yeah, great U.S. player, regardless.
There's another U.S. player for you, Nicky Fatiu.
Pie face, Nicky Pie face, Nick on a stick. Remember Nick on a stick?
Yeah.
They had it at the Garden. They had his face, and they put it on a tongue depressor, like a big popsicle stick. And people were at the game like this, Nick on a stick. Absolutely love Nick Fatil. A lot of respect. Just real, real person. He's the real deal.
Now, he was one of the few players who actually fought technically. Like he would, was it, because most guys in that era, I'm asking you, not telling you, obviously, uh,
Yeah.
they didn't seem to fight with much technique. Nick would like hit you with body shots and like,
Yeah. Golden Gloves boxer, right? You know?
was that obvious when you would fight him? Like, oh, this guy knows what he's
Oh,
doing.
yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. You could tell. Nick, again, he was a boxer. He boxed in the ring, so he knew, where a lot of guys probably hadn't. And, still it's different than in the ring when you're on a quarter inch of steel blade, for sure.
All right. I mean, I could do this all day with you, so I'll just do a few names. Thank you again for your time. It's
No problem.
um, Michel Petit.
Uh, Great teammate, tougher than I ever thought he was. Certainly. Um, Michelle's wife, funny, pretty girl, Candace.
Good for him.
Um, yeah, it's funny. Carol Alt used to come in the game late, so everybody would whistle. His wife started doing it. Poor Michelle, he was like,
No,
put his head down the bench.
I have to ask you a question about him that
Go ahead.
it's just mind blowing to me that he couldn't stick on one team. Why is a guy who, on paper, first round pick, 11th overall, seemingly could do, I don't want to say everything, but most things pretty good. How the fuck does he play on 11 teams?
Well, another guy like that, Brent Ashton,
They were in
played. I
competition.
probably, yeah, right. I, I think it has something to do with their personality in the room.
Right.
You know, it has to be. And looking at it and knowing, I played um, against Ashton, and I did I play with him? Was he in New York, Brent Ashton?
I don't think
I
he
think
was.
no, he wasn't. Where did I? No, Boston. Maybe in Boston we
Right.
played together. Anyway, yeah, it was a little different. Michelle was a little different too, and when you're a little different like that, and in that team atmosphere, that concept, if you're not, if you don't blend in with everybody and you're able to be effective and stand out in some way, then you're not. Yeah, you won't be around long.
It's funny you say that
That's something.
because the Kings last year traded for a guy by the name of Pierre-Luc Dubois, and he's on the Michel Petit track.
Trained. Yeah.
I mean, and I asked the Kings at that rookie tournament. I was talking to a very well-known NHL scout, and I had to ask him. I'm like, much like the Petit question to you, I'm like, please explain to me how this guy is 6'4", 225, skates fast, great shot, great passer. Why is he on 4 teams by the age of 25? And he said he never learned to play the game because he was so good. And he's
Yeah.
aloof in the locker room, so he rubs people the wrong way, which
Like Drew Doughty, maybe.
I mean, when Drew Doughty did that interview, uh,
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, it's starting early. I'm a Dubois fan because I just see I hate it when I see talented players like him just like it's funny. Dennis Bernstein took me to the Seattle Kraken Kings game last year, and it was Dubois' best game as a King by far. He showed hunger. Trevor Moore had the hat trick. Dubois had the assist on all 3 goals. He was physically active. I went to Dennis and said, "This is the guy we're paying $8.5 million for." And then, of course, the next 5 games, he looked like he was on a bag skate. Like, just not talking about Petit anymore, but more, I guess, Dubois. Do some guys like he's got to care, doesn't he?
Yeah, but some guys, just personality-wise, they for whatever reason they don't fit in. Now, there's red flags with everybody. Okay, not everybody. The guys who are that have red flags, every GM in the league, not every, but a lot of them think they can fix them.
Right.
Alex Galchenyuk, how many teams was he on?
Yeah.
His father was a problem. His father's every day at the rink, man. They living off the kid, really fucked the kid up, I think. Um, Pierre-Luc Dubois. No, before we get to him, Jonathan Drouin,
Oh yeah, yeah.
Tampa Bay, right? Tampa Bay doesn't want to go to the minors, wants out, complaining, blah, blah. Young kid coming into the league, and he starts out that way. Red flag. Montreal takes him. How are you going to deal with the pressure here in Montreal being a local kid? He said, oh, no problem. Well, it was a problem. Um, Pierre-Luc, let's just say he was in Columbus.
Right.
John Tortorella was tough on him. He probably played his best fucking hockey under John Tortorella.
100%.
And then he goes, okay, we'll go to
Winnipeg.
Winnipeg. Not Winnipeg. He doesn't get it done. Now in LA, gone. I think he's doing okay now in Washington. Maybe he's starting to wake up a little bit, but
Not really.
I
I
wouldn't
study
bet.
him.
I wouldn't bet on it.
I mean, I study him. Like I watched the game and they got him on the line with Tom Wilson, and Tom Wilson strikes me as the type of guy who's like, "Hey man, I don't know what
Yeah,
went on the last three other teams, but it ain't gonna happen on my line."
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I don't think I've ever seen a player skate with one hand on a stick so much like him. Like,
Right.
he just seems to be so, it's not even laziness, but just so apathetic. Like, if I make a play, I make a play.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Instead of
knew
digging in.
we were in trouble in his first interview. The first thing he said was, I love the beach. I'm like, oh man.
Oh,
Woo! All
I
right.
love the beach.
We'll end on that.
How about I love hockey?
And you could tell he was tan. I'm like, oh man, this might, I didn't mind the trade for him. Most King fans were upset with what we gave up. But I like Rob Blake. He's got a little bit of Esposito in him where he takes these big swings, and like
Yeah,
I was a fan when they signed Kovalchuk. That didn't really work out, but we won't. That's another podcast, Chris. So,
yeah, it is.
Chris, I can't thank you enough. Like,
Yeah, Earl, great to meet you. Anytime, if you ever want to chat, I'm around. Just let me know. We'll
oh, I
do
would
it.
love to. It's a true honor. Like you really are. Like for anyone who grew up watching your era of hockey, it's just you were one of the main and most popular players, and your podcast is amazing. And please support Chris. Buy a T-shirt, buy a picture. Like, some players aren't treated well after they retire from the game. We're in a very similar business, Chris. Comics aren't treated great either. Uh,
Yeah,
so
I hear you. I
please,
appreciate it.
I'm like the Nilan of comedy. I just keep going. I don't give a fuck.
Keep
But
going. Keep plugging away. Hey, do me a favor.
sure,
After we get off, text me your address. And what is your size, by the way? What size are you?
I'm a
Extra
large.
large?
I mean, I'm
You're
a pretty
large.
big guy, Chris. I mean, for 56.
Yeah. No, yeah, you are. You're in shape. Fuck.
I mean,
You
for
sure you're large? Could you be an XL in a hoodie, maybe?
an XL, we might as well go
Yeah.
XL.
Yeah.
Um,
We'll
so,
go XL.
I mean, Chris, this has been an honor. Like, there's not many people I look forward to interviewing, and you were so much a part of my childhood. I just thank you very much for how you played. You played it honorably, and just thank you again. Follow Chris Nilan. He's just one of the fucking best, and
I
this will be
appreciate it,
out.
Earl.
I'll send you the link. This will be out in about an hour, brother.
Good stuff. And send your address. Text it to me. All right.
Well, thank you very much, Chris.